Hi. It has come to my attention that there are folks out there who are unhappy with the size of their biceps. I'm sorry. I said I wasn't going to cry. I can't live in a world like this. This cannot happen on my watch. Stay tuned if this includes you. Today we're going to talk about how to train your biceps perhaps in a different way than you have before. I got a few philosophies that I genuinely think might change the way you train. Alright, so let's first cover some preliminary information. Building bigger muscles, or muscle hypertrophy. There's three main things that I'd like you to focus on that are going to make the biggest difference in you building muscle. Number one is the volume of your training. We measure this by tracking our reps, our sets, and our weight. This could be a measurement of your daily volume. This could be your weekly volume, monthly, yearly, whatever it is. You can assume that the amount of volume you're doing is the direct product of the muscle that you have right then and there. So if you are not happy with the amount of muscle that you are currently getting from your program, you probably got to up one of these variables so that that volume increases. There is a chance you might need to decrease it, but my assumption is that you probably want to go up first. The second factor to consider is the rep range that you're training in. We now know that between 6 and 36 reps, if you train until muscle failure, can cause muscle hypertrophy. I want to clarify that this means muscle failure. If you go beyond 36 reps, oftentimes that starts to involve your cardiovascular system and you might start breathing so heavy and your lungs essentially are what give up first. That's not going to help with muscle hypertrophy for a trained individual. That's why you want to focus on muscle failure, picking a weight that challenges you to a point where your muscles give up before your lungs and your heart. Factor number 3 is recovery. This is actually probably the most important one, because the stimulus you're putting on your body with these intense workouts, this intense mechanism of muscle failure, it takes a lot to recover. The number one thing you're probably not doing is recovering well enough. That means you might not be eating enough protein, you might be eating too many processed sugars, you might be drinking too much alcohol, you might have too much stress in your daily life, you might not be sleeping well. All these things can play a role in how your body recovers from workouts, but typically the one thing that you got to do is eat enough to build muscle. You cannot be in a calorie deficit and build bigger muscles, at least not significantly. Yeah, that looks about right. All right, let's quickly talk about the anatomy of the bicep. I'm going to keep this very simple, but it's important to know because it will impact how you train the muscle if you want to train it better. The main focus I'm going to talk about is the biceps brachii. You do have other muscles in the area. Obviously, your triceps, you have the brachioradialis, you have the brachialis. We're going to talk about the biceps brachii. Biceps brachii are your main elbow flexor. There are two heads to it. You have the long head and the short head. The long head connects up a little bit higher on the shoulder than the short head does. And the reason that's important is the position of your shoulder can impact what muscle you bias or emphasize. If I bring my shoulder back into extension, because the long head connects up here, it gets a better stretch, and we know that muscles like to be stretched. So this would be a really good position to really emphasize the effect of training my biceps long head. Versus if I bring my shoulder up in a shoulder flexion, I'm shortening all the muscles, and I might be able to put a little bit more tension on that bicep short head. Next, we're going to hop into the meat and potatoes, the actual exercises you can do to make a very big difference in building your muscles. The reason I picked these 4 is you might not be doing them, or you might not realize the impact they can have on your biceps due to the position that they put your shoulder in. You can essentially break up these 2 up top as the shortened position and these 2 right here as the lengthened position. Having the combination of both in your workout program, either on the same day or throughout the course of a week, is a really well-rounded way to train the biceps. All right, so let's hop right into it. Our first exercise is the chin up, which means that your palms are facing you. You can also replicate this with the cable pull-down machine as long as palms are facing you. One of the reasons this exercise is so good is because of the massive range of motion it puts you through, being that you start in a shoulder flexion position and end in shoulder neutral or almost shoulder extension. So it's a very big range of motion to get that shoulder, the top part of that bicep, to go through. Another reason this exercise is so good is because it's a compound lift. You get other muscles to help you move your biceps through a large range of motion with a very heavy load that your biceps might not be able to lift in isolation. All right, so here's the cueing. Because this is a compound lift, other muscles are involved. And if you think about training them in different ways, you can bias or emphasize different muscles. If I wanted to do a chin up and bias my lats, I would tell myself the goal is to bring my elbows down to my hips. That makes this a very lat-centric or lat-focused exercise. If you want to bias the biceps, all you got to do is tell yourself, I'm pulling my palms to my shoulders. And I promise you, that little switch makes a very significant difference with how you train those muscles. the biceps will make it fatigue a whole lot faster. And then again, you still get a little bit of help from the lats. No matter what, the lats are helping a little bit, but you can bias or focus on those biceps just a little bit more. Exercise number 2 is the preacher curl. This can be done unilateral, one arm, or bilateral. Some gyms like us have a pad over in the corner that's pretty popular where you can fit both elbows on it with a good amount of space, and you might even hold a barbell or an easy bar to do both arms at the same time. For right now, we're just going to keep it single arm. So first of all, the goal of this exercise is to get yourself in a shoulder flexion, which is essentially getting your elbow up in front of you. So if I walk my butt, and you would never do this, walk your feet over here, I'm basically in a normal position. My elbow's almost back to my side. I'm almost at elbow or shoulder neutral. And I want to make sure that I'm in shoulder flexion. So that means I want to walk pretty far back to get my elbow out in front of me or relatively higher from my waist. The next thing to consider is the angle of the pad. I like to set up the pad at an angle where no matter where I am, even at the top, there's a little bit of leverage on my bicep. So if I make this too vertical or too horizontal, there gets to a point where I'm over here and I'm no longer loading my bicep. So that way, if I have the correct angle, at no point in the movement do I lose tension on the bicep. You can counter that and just stop the rep a little bit short. If the pad that you have does not set to the correct angle, maybe you only come up most of the way and stop right here so you can keep constant tension on that bicep. All right, so here we have exercise number 3, the seated incline curl. I'm seated, the bench is on an incline, and I'm doing curls. This is a very humbling exercise in that you're going to want some light weights to get the effect of them. So the reason these are so good is because they put you in a very big stretch position. My elbows are backwards, touching the bench. Make sure that when you do the curl, you're not lifting your elbows up and forward. The goal is to keep those elbows backwards into shoulder extension the entire time. I even like to turn my palms outward slightly to make sure that I pin my elbows to the bench. It's almost like the weight is levering my elbow into the bench or my upper arm into the bench. From here, the exercise is simple. All you got to do is bring those palms to your shoulders and lower those dumbbells back down slowly. Exercise number 4 is called a drag curl, or it looks very similar to a hip hike. I'm going to pretty much consider them the same here. The main goal is to keep your elbows behind you in a shoulder extension as you bring the weight up as close to you as possible. If you want to do it with a neutral grip, you call it a hip hike. It's kind of like pulling up a really heavy pair of pants with your elbows pulling up behind you into shoulder extension. Or if you wanted to focus the bicep a little bit more rather than the upper back, you might keep palms forward. Make sure your wrists stay in neutral. You don't want those wrists cocking down or up too far. Longer lever is going to get a little bit more out of those lighter weights. So you notice that the path that I'm drawing with the weight is a straight line up and down as I pull my elbows backwards and get my palm as close to my shoulder as possible. Well, all right, that about wraps up the video. I really hope you actually try these exercises because they can make a significant change to the way that your biceps are looking and feeling. And beyond that, the concepts of shortened and lengthened positions of training your muscles applies to all other muscles as well. So if you want videos for exercises to get maybe your chest, or your quads, your hamstrings, your butt, whatever, if you want to help other muscles grow with these same concepts, let me know and we can get another video to you. As always, if you got a friend or family member who's struggling with tiny biceps, send them this video. Maybe they'll learn something in this video that'll help them move in the right direction. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Hey man. How you doing?
Carrie called them limp noodles yesterday.
Disrespect. No one has ever said, nor will they ever be able to say that to me.
You'll never understand.
No, I really will not ever understand that feeling of noodly arms.
I hate you so much.
Listen, man, I think I got a plan for you. I think we can make those arms grow.
Even mine?
Even you, Rock. Even you.
Take that, Carrie.
Here, do you need something to wipe your eyes with?
Wow, that really does the trick.
Okay.